Finding an activity to do with your child that challenges and pushes you both to be better, that builds character, and is something you can learn together is a fantastic thing.
At Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, we thrive on positive feedback from our students, so you can just imagine how happy we were to hear from Jessica and her daughters as they gave their thoughts about our classes.
Classes are always fun, and I always learn something new.
Fun and learning, all while getting out and getting active. That's one of our goals, and according to these amazing ladies, we're doing our job and doing it well.
I see the excitement and the joy that they have to go to class to learn and improve.
Contact us today to find out what everyone is talking about. Our family can't wait to meet your family.
Okami Kai is my favorite place to be.
Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness. Check us out at okamikai.com.
Everything is my favorite thing to do in class.
Welcome to the Okami Kai Chronicles. I'm Scott Campsell, and I'm the Chief Instructor at Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, which is located in Uxbridge, Ontario, Canada. Today, we're calling this episode Just Start Already. And this one is for every student who's hesitated to book that first class, for every parent who's unsure if their child is ready, and for anyone who's told themselves they need to feel prepared before they act. Let's be real. Readiness is a myth. Getting started isn't about having confidence, it's about being willing to move through discomfort, and the science backs it up. Most people believe procrastination means you're lazy or bad at time management, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So with all that being said, let's get started. Dr. Tom Pitchell from Carleton University and Dr. Fusia Sirwa from Durham University have spent years studying procrastination. Their research shows that procrastination is a failure of emotional regulation. When we delay, we aren't trying to avoid the task, we're trying to avoid the feelings the task creates. Fear, uncertainty, insecurity, and guilt. For example, you're not avoiding a martial arts or fitness class, you're avoiding how you'll feel when you realize you're out of shape or how out of place you might look. The possibility of looking unprepared. And those feelings are often tied to our ego and a need for perfection. In other words, if you don't think you can do it well, why should you do it at all? And that emotional trap really keeps us stuck. Our brains evolved to avoid uncertainty. Thousands of years ago, not knowing what was in the tall grass could get you killed. Today, not knowing how a new class will go, it just gets you nervous, but your brain still treats that unknown like a threat. Neurologically, the amygdala activates in response to uncertainty, releasing stress hormones like cortisol, and your body preps for fight, flight, or freeze. Most often, it chooses freeze. So an example of this would be like kids who are worried about sparring because they might get hit or they might look dumb. Adults might be worried about keeping up in a class or everybody else looking better than them. And your brain is constantly looking for relief. So it'll hand you distractions. Our biggest competitor right now, especially for kids, is screens. It's not hockey. It's not other martial arts schools. When we have parents that come to us and say that their child wants to quit, it may not be because their child wants to do another activity. It's because they're fighting to go to class because it's more comfortable to sit on an iPad than it is to be on the floor. This goes for adults though too. Your brain is constantly looking for relief. It's always looking for the easy way out. And it doesn't matter whether you are self-disciplined or motivated, your brain works the same way. It just means that you can override it if you've got that self-discipline. One of the biggest excuses people have for not coming to class is that they say that they're too busy. And so what I'd like you to do is keep in mind that if you're one of those people, it doesn't matter whether you are a beginner or a seasoned veteran martial artist or fitness student, your brain is looking for comfort over stress. And so what ends up happening is you get distractions. And it doesn't mean you're lazy, you're just chemically self-soothing. The dopamine hit from a small, meaningless task gives you a momentary sense of control. And that's why you need to do all of those little tasks before you come to train. The problem is, though, that it trains you to expect comfort and not results. There's a guy, Roy Baumeister, a leading psychologist in self-regulation research, and he coined this term, what the hell effect. And it's not like, what the hell's going on here? It's like what happens when you break a habit or goal and then you give up completely. So for example, you miss a workout. So you go, well, what the hell? And then just miss the whole week. Or you had one unhealthy meal. You might as well just go off your diet then. And it's a catch-22 scenario because procrastination creates guilt. Guilt fuels avoidance, and then the cycle constantly loops. So what I found to be the solution when it happens to me is I try to forgive myself and then I reboot as fast as I can. Research shows that self-forgiveness is one of the strongest predictors of breaking a procrastination cycle. We think that self-discipline is about punishment, and it's not. It's about rebooting faster. In martial arts, this means showing up even when you're not proud of your last class. And then remembering that if you miss a week, it doesn't mean you failed. But if you keep on staying away out of guilt, that is failure. Dr. Siwa found that people who believe they need to feel ready before they act are far more likely to procrastinate. And these people often suffer from high perfectionism and chronic indecision. They wait for a moment when they feel capable, motivated, and emotionally stable, and that moment rarely comes. And so then, therefore, nothing begins. And why? Because action creates readiness, not the other way around. Something else to consider, there's a thing called psychological identity theory. And this tells us that we behave according to who we believe we are. So if you see yourself as someone who can stick with things, you act that way. If you start acting like someone who trains consistently, the identity follows that. And this is why some of the most highly ranked martial arts students are not necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who just kept on showing up even when they didn't feel like they belonged or they didn't feel like going to class that day. They're the kind of person who starts by starting. And so when we go back into that idea of doing those small tasks and creating that dopamine, people who have the most experience in martial arts and fitness, they've gotten dopamine by actually creating an illusion of control by going to class. That's their small task, right down to the planning stage. And while we're on that, let's be careful about planning, because planning feels good, but it can also create the illusion of control. Over planning can also become a form of procrastination. And this is a concept known as analysis paralysis. The planning, like I said, triggers the dopamine. And so you feel like you're making progress even though you haven't lifted a finger. You can spend a week designing your ideal training schedule and still not show up to class. When we go back to what started this whole podcast, we say just start. What I didn't say was start planning. What I said was just start. Commit to getting your gi in your sports bag or driving to the dojo. If you're trying to train outside of class, just commit to 5 minutes. Chances are, once you're in the flow, you will go longer than 5 minutes. We did a social media post recently about why we do basics all the time. And part of the reason why we do it, and I didn't talk about this in the social media post, is because of something you can't see but changes everything, and that's myelin. Every time you repeat a movement, your brain sends electrical signals through a neural pathway. And with repetition, the brain wraps that pathway in myelin, and that's an insulating layer that speeds up the signal. I'm in the middle of a book by Oz Pearlman, and he's a mentalist, and he explains it like this. Imagine walking through deep snow, and the first trip is really slow because you have to carve the trail. But then the second time is a little easier, and then by the fifth time, you're moving so fast because you've built up a groove. And that's how skills are built, not by watching, not by planning, but by walking the trail over and over, even if it's awkward at first. So if you're hesitating to start because you feel clumsy, remember you're carving the snow trail. And that's what learning looks like. So if you've heard this podcast before, you know that I don't just like to go and tip you off on things and give you problems. I usually try to give you some kind of solutions that I've discovered or that I've used. And so here are 5 practical tools to disarm procrastination. Number 1, the 5-minute rule. And I talked about that earlier. Tell yourself you only have to do 5 minutes. This tricks the brain into starting. Number 2, environment wins. This would be doing things like putting your gi and all your workout gear in a sports bag or something and leaving it by the door before you leave the house in the morning, so that's already in your car when you need to go to class during the day or at night. Something that I've used that seems to work really well for me is this thing called an implementation intention, where basically I just know what days and times I'm doing certain things, whether it is going to a class or whether it's going to the gym to work out. One of the things that we have that's a really cool thing is that we have a class schedule where you can go to any classes that you want on any day. So let's say you miss Monday night, but you want to go Tuesday night, that's fine. Or you could actually go Monday and Tuesday. Honestly, it's a bit of a hindrance to be able to offer that, because a lot of people, what they do is they just realize they need twice a week, and then they just go twice a week and they just pick whatever days they feel like going. But the ones that seem to progress further with us are the ones that look at it and say, for example, you could look at our class times on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock and say, those are the nights that I train. So no matter what happens on Tuesday, I have to be at the dojo at 7 o'clock and ready to go and do the class. So Tuesday and Thursday are my training nights. Or if you do Aikido, you say, okay, I'm going to go on Wednesday night for the Aikido class. Or on a Saturday, you look at whether you're going to do the morning or the afternoon class. You put it in your schedule and there's nothing that gets in the way. I find for me, when I work out in the gym, I like to go in the morning and I have a time in the morning when I go. And it's funny because if I try to go in the afternoon, it doesn't feel the same at all. And I usually have to force myself to go if I miss a workout in the morning, even if that implementation thing doesn't work or I miss that day. And if something does get in the way, whether it be, I don't know, a family crisis or it hasn't happened to me in a long time, but maybe the car doesn't start or something like whatever, I can't go and reschedule it because I've already got it. That's how strong my implementation intention is that I don't work out the same in the afternoon or in the evening that I would in the morning. Well, I can't do the evenings because I'm teaching, but trying to get me to do a workout at like 1:30 or 2 o'clock when my body's not programmed and my mind's not programmed to do it is just off. I'm just totally off when I do that. But going back to our list, number 4, track streaks. I don't do this, but I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger used to do it. And you use a calendar and you mark every day you train or show up. Because then when you see all the X's on the calendar, then you can realize that how much momentum you've had, and that builds pride. 5, and we talked about this before, forgive fast. When you miss a session, get back on track the next day. There's no shame spiral. And there shouldn't be any shame spiral. Everybody does it. And like I said earlier, if I miss my morning workout, because it does, like even though you could have the best intentions, things happen. Sometimes we get off track and you're not alone. So why feel embarrassed about it? Why feel guilty? Obviously, when we do a podcast episode like this, we are speaking to the people who have sat on the sidelines and are afraid to start classes with us. Or maybe they've quit for whatever reason and they're having a tough time coming back. So to the parents, I would say, well, your child watches everything. And when you show them that it's okay to begin before you feel ready, they learn resilience off of you. To students who have quit, it doesn't matter how long you've been away. What does matter is whether you move forward now. And to the ones who have never started, that aren't parents, that are just considering it, same thing. It matters that you move forward now and not tomorrow, not when you're motivated, but now. I have never, ever had someone tell me that they regretted starting martial arts or fitness classes. But we have had several people tell me that they regretted waiting. If this episode made you rethink what you're waiting for, well, good. Now stop waiting, start moving, and we'll see you on the mat. This was a Campbell Broadcasting production. Every master was once a disaster. Let's go start making a mess.